Welcome to 2022's final edition of the Riverfront Bengals Show, where we come to you every Thursday to discuss the week that was and the days to come for your beloved Cincinnati Bengals. Joe, we are the very show recently recognized as the #1 top spot, most dangerous podcast in the island, country, and micro state of Palau. I'm Nate Dotson. He's Joe Farsing. We are your hosts. Joe, how the hell are you, man?
7 wins in a row. I'm doing fantastic. If a baker's dozen is 13, is a baker's dozen or baker's half dozen 7?
What is a Baker Mayfield's dozen?
That's wins over the past 6 years, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know how long has he been in the league. Yeah,
it's game.
Yeah.
Well, Joe, before we get into the weeds and hash out Cincinnati's Week 16 perplexing, irritating, wonderful, terrible, all at the same time road win over Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots. If you listeners out there would just do us a solid, if you would be so kind, give us a like, follow, subscribe, wherever you watch or listen to this podcast. We would appreciate it. We are available everywhere. It influences the almighty algorithm to push us out there a little bit more, and getting pushed out there is great unless you're recovering from a tightrope walking addiction, in which case, frowned upon. So let's jump right in, Joe. I don't know if you were paying attention, being the holidays, Christmas Eve and all, but the Cincinnati Bengals went on the road in disgusting weather against future Hall of Fame coach Bill Belichick's Patriots. Got 375 yards and 3 touchdowns from Joe Burrow, won the game to extend their streak to 7 in a row, yet still seem to have left the fan base feeling a little flaccid. How about you? How are you feeling now that we are several days removed?
Not flaccid. I'm very excited. So that's definitely not. No. It was a weird game. It was. I mean, the narrative is that the offense only played one half of the game. They're absolutely dominant. It might have been the best half of football that I've seen the Bengals with Joe Burrow play in his 3 years. But they were actually really good all game long. If you look at the drives in the second half, there was only 2 3-and-outs. One was the one just there after the turnover at the end of the game, and the other one was earlier in the third quarter. They were marching every time. It was turnovers that end them, or some drop passes. I mean, there were mistakes to be made, to be sure, but Burrow was on fire from the coin flip on. To my count, they left 13 points on the board with 2 missed extra points. Well, the missed extra point, and then the second missed extra point / penalty / failed 2-point conversion. Mixon had a TD run that was nullified by a holding penalty that led to a field goal. And Trent Irwin missed I'm not going to say an easy touchdown catch because he had to leave his feet, but I don't know if he mistimed it or whatever. He's pretty sure-handed. Yeah, it was that ball most of the time. Yeah, it's a catchable ball, and that led to a missed field goal. So, I mean, that's 30. That's 35 points right there, not counting the pick six. It was, the scoreboard was a hell of a lot closer than the game actually was. So, I'm still feeling real good by the way the offense was going.
Yeah, it was a tale of 2 halves, 22-0 at the end of the first half, and then they had to squeak it out. They had to come up with a huge play that we'll talk about here in a little bit to close it out. But it's like you said, they were a couple misplays away from blowing the thing wide open. Jamar Chase had a couple, I'll call them drops, but catches that he didn't make that he usually makes. One of them, they ended up scoring on the drive anyway. The other one they didn't. New England had some pretty crazy plays. They made about 4 or 5 plays in the second half, not even counting the fluky Jacoby Myers touchdown, that if they don't make those, the drives don't continue. The Bengals just run out the clock. It was one of those, if it can go wrong, it went wrong kind of games in the second half. So, yeah, you shouldn't be worried. You should be feeling good. You should not be flaccid. You should be full mast, if anything, because the Bengals won 7 in a row against Belichick and the Patriots. But you mentioned how well the offense played. And if we're going to be talking about full mast, we got to talk about Joe Burrow. He was nearly perfect in the first half. 28 of 36, which is 36 attempts in the first half. It's crazy.
Yeah.
284 yards and all 3 of his touchdowns. Got a little ugly in the second half. Under 100 yards and the pick 6. Or either of his 2 interceptions his faults? I don't know. It looked like they were both due to miscommunication to me. And then the game just started out about as perfectly as you could hope for. Touchdown, and the defense forced a 3 and out. Offense scores a touchdown. Defense forces a 3 and out. Then the offense kicks a field goal, and then the defense holds them to 1 first down, and then 3 more plays and out. So it looked like it was going to be a blowout. I would say that it's fair to say the offense got a little complacent. I think as fans, we were all kind of thinking, oh, hey, we can get some rest for these guys. You're crazy to think that didn't enter the players' minds also. Doesn't mean the offense didn't play well by any means, but it got a little scary, and the optimism at halftime was kind of gone by the end of the half. But what else jumped out to you on offense, man? It was a crazy game.
Yeah, I mean, and about the offense getting complacent, and the play calling stayed aggressive, and that's what I was happy to see. I mean, they were still throwing downfield, and it was just the plays that the throws were there. The plays weren't being made. So that's I don't know if it's the player. Again, who knows? But yeah, I like that the play calling kept the pedal down, but it's weird that just the entire flow of the game, even in the second half, like the run game wasn't bad. Mixon had 16 for 65, which is just over 4 yards a carry. Had that TD taken off the board, but they kind of abandoned it because Burrow was passing so efficiently. And then when Collins went down, I wonder how much of that changed kind of the flow and the play calling. Like maybe they would have run the ball more in the second half and it would have kept. I don't know if they would have been able to keep drives going, or or the pick 6, would or would not have happened, but. I wonder if the game plan changed with Collins going out. He's a dominant run blocker. He, say what you want about his pass blocking. He's not very consistent, we'll say, but he is a true road grader. So, again, I'm happy to see how the game looked as a whole. New England's defense was second in DVOA coming into the game, and they went for 442 yards on them and should have had 35 points, if not more. Not counting the weird fluke crap. So.
Yeah, that's really important to keep in mind. And I apologize. There's an ambulance or police siren going off outside my window right now. I don't know if y'all can hear. New England's defense is awesome. They have one of the best defenses in the NFL. You just said it. Second in DVOA. They're a top 10 D by just about any metric you can find. The only problem I had on offense, as far as the play calling goes, was the first drive, the opening drive of the second half for Cincinnati. They did not go for it on 4th and 1. And usually I don't care too much. I know that people a lot smarter than me are making these decisions. But if we're playing a little revisionist history, midfield, 4th and 1, the defense has just been dominant the entire game. It seemed like an appropriate time to me to go for it right there and just say, hey, remember that thing we did to you in the first half? We're going to do that again right here. They ended up Chrisman had an awesome punt, 3 and out, and then they got great field position. So the call worked. But I would have loved to see him sort of step on their throat right there. But other than that, it was just a really good offensive game all the way around. The points weren't there in the second half, but that was because of some pretty fluky stuff.
Well, it's funny because they used to be a lot more aggressive in terms of going for it on the 4th down. I mean, Zach Taylor was very much a by the book, as in what's the percentages say? If it's it's 4th and 1, I mean, you go for it. Most times, unless you're deep in your own territory. What was it in first game last year? They were on their own 35 on 4th and 1, and they went for it and they missed, and everyone was absolutely tearing them apart. But again, those the calls you made, and I don't know if he started listening to the press, or he's just got more confidence in. I don't know, but they've gotten a lot more conservative, and they're on the wrong side of being conservative on 4th downs and short. So yeah, I'd like to see him a lot more aggressive on that play, especially in that position. You just caused the 3 and out. You got a chance to go up by ostensibly 4+ scores. Go for it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The analytics nerds can go kick rocks on this one. I don't care what the percentages say. Momentum and game flow and these things, they are real. The percentages can say one thing, but You got Joe Burrow as your quarterback. You have a better percentage than some other team might.
Well, and that's what the percentages say. I mean, percentages say go for it.
Yeah,
like kicking it is, you lose win probability by kicking it.
Right. So I don't know. Other than that, like I don't have too much to complain about offensively. If you are, you're just maybe there was that miscommunication on those 2 picks, but that's kind of all. Defensively, a lot of people are going to say that the offense was outscored 18, or the Bengals were truly outscored 18-0 in the second half. Too much noise about the defense playing a bad second half. They only allowed 12 points, and they were given piss poor field position to work against, and 12 of those points included a fluky as hell Hail Mary. Probably the new name for that. The fluky is Hail Mary.
Yeah.
So what did you see out of the D that really jumped out to you?
Yeah, and again, they had 2 legitimate drives. The one touchdown drive that led to the 5-yard pass to Kendrick Bourne, and then the one at the end that the drive that they had when they caused the fumble. They had 3rd and 29 from ostensibly midfield. I mean, they were at the 48-yard line, and Mac Jones throws a ball up into double coverage to a former Bengal special or practice teamer in practice squad player in Scotty Washington. And they bat the pass down, except Jacoby Myers is there for the catch. And instead of lateraling it 40 yards back like he did last week, I caught it and just walked it in.
That is low. He didn't deserve that, Joe. He does not.
Yes, he did.
yeah, you're right. He did.
Just take a knee, man. Like, what the hell are you doing? Anyway, I mean, what do they had the ball on the edge of the red zone, and they pushed him back with sacks and penalties and this stupid ass intentional grounding / fumble, etc. That still burns my ass because his hand was moving open, facing the field, yet they said he pushed it. I don't understand NFL officiating. I don't know what's a catch. I don't know what's a pass. Nobody knows what pass interference is. You can bear hug a guy in the end zone like the Commanders game last week, and nothing gets called. Or you could breathe on a guy like Logan Wilson in the Super Bowl and get a penalty called. No one knows what's.
Well, apparently, what you can also do if you are the Patriots is when you're losing and trying to mount a comeback, you just ask the referees to throw a flag.
Yeah,
there was a drive late in the 4th that I think they stopped him on 3rd and long, and after about 3 seconds, the receiver starts waving for the flag, and then sure enough, it comes out of nowhere, and it was not a penalty anywhere to be found. But
yeah, I
don't want to be the guy that complains about the refs because it's going to balance out throughout the course of a season. But screw you, Patriots. Otherwise, sorry, go ahead.
It's just the consistency of the officiating. It's what's furious. Again, every team is going to have complaints about the officiating because you're only focusing on your team. But I don't know what's what. I mean, how many clear completions are called incomplete or it's just maddening because no one knows what's what. You've got all this technology, use it.
My favorite theory I heard today, and it was that all instant replay should be in real time only. If you can't change the call based on the replay in real time, then none of this slow down up close stuff. Just it's an entertainment product. We're trying to have fun here. The drunk guy at the end of the bar should be able to tell you what happened as well as anybody else. Yeah. I do want to make sure we don't forget to mention your boy, my presidential hopeful DJ Reader. Just another awesome game from DJ. He was really the driving force for that Von Bell play that saved the game. Von Bell's fumble punch out recovery. DJ was on the ground on that play, and he kept at it, got back up, hit Stevenson again, and then Von Bell comes in and make that play. So just another incredible effort from maybe the best player in the entire sneaking league, which is only a tiny bit of hyperbole.
Yeah, I mean, as great as Burrow is, it's not a dumb question to ask. Is DJ Reader even better at his position than Burrow is? And that's clearly not a knock on Burrow because we're about as big of Burrow stands as there are. But another thing I thought of, why does it always seem like when the team needs a turnover, when the team needs a big play, it's one of 3 guys or some combination of these 3 guys that are involved in it? BJ Hill, Jermaine Pratt, Von Bell, one guy from each level of the defense. I mean, just think of just in the playoffs last year, those guys. Jermaine Playoff P had the interception at the end of the Raiders game. BJ Hill had the tipped pass interception against KC, and then the interception by Von Bell at the end of the game versus KC. In this week, BJ Hill made the Von Bell made the punch the ball out from Stevenson, and BJ Hill got the recovery. Those guys are just always there when a play needs to be made, and,
Yeah,
and
there's
it's
no
great.
way.
It's great to have those playmakers.
Yeah, there's no way to get analytical about this, but it's been one of my favorite themes of the season is as a fan of any sport, really, you always want your team to make that one play. Like if this one thing just happens on this drive, then we don't have to worry anymore and the game's over. It seems like Cincinnati has come up with that play time and time again this year. And those are the kind of things you need to go on A, 7-game winning streaks, B, long playoff runs. So hopefully we'll get some more of that. The only other person I really wanted to throw out there is Trey Hendrickson. Our guy graded out at a 78.8, which, pretty good. Like, I'm not going to stop the presses or anything, but he has a broken wrist. Like his whole wrist is broken. And that's one of the coolest things ever. What an animal.
Just a freak show. There was one play that he got he got pressure, forced him up. I think it was one of the ones. I think it caused the sack by Carter or somebody maybe. He's so fast around the end or around the edge. Then he used this club move to swat down I guess it's the outside arm of the lineman, and that's the wrist that's broken. I mean, yeah, it's wrapped and taped up, but the amount of pain tolerance, it was cold as hell. So it was probably numb at that point. But at some point when he falls out, that thing's got to be hurting, man. I get you're not going to injure it any worse, and that's the reason why he's out there and it's pain tolerance. Man, that guy, these guys are built different.
Yeah, absolute stud. I'm going to shuffle things around a little bit on our schedule, calling an audible, Joe Burrow style. Let's jump into the injury, the depth chart update real quick, because that's kind of the next big piece of news. And we'll go from least discussion required to most. Hayden Hurst out for a couple, looks likely to play. Have you heard anything different?
Not really. Kind of like with Joe Mixon when Zach Taylor held him up just that last week, even though he was clear, even though he was probably able to be cleared, held him up, just give him that extra week. That's kind of how he was this week. He could have played, but with as cold as it is, and you got a soft tissue issue. Oh, that rhymes. Just give him the extra week. Mitch Wilcox, he's been playing really, really well. He's fantastic. He's a better run blocker than Hayden Hurst is. Honestly, he's not as good pass catcher, but they still don't, even with Hurst, they don't rely too much on the tight end. So give him that extra week, and it didn't cost them, and he should be completely good to go this week.
Yeah, looking forward to his return. We are big fans of Hayden Hurst on this podcast.
Love him.
Sam Hubbard. Zach Taylor said he was looking day to day, which is kind of optimistic if we're being honest.
Yeah, with how the depth chart kind of played out this past week, I would expect him to get another week off. Mm-hmm. Again, it's now the weather's going to be a lot better. Instead of being like 5 as it's been all week long, it's actually going to be in the 50s by Monday. It'll be in the 40s and raining by game time. So he's got a better, you're not going to worry about it being so cold that everything's going to be tensed up. But I would still kind of imagine that he'd get the extra week. Only thing that would make me think he might play is the enormity of the game, which we'll get into later. But I would expect him just getting another week. I mean, Sample and the other D'Anzo side, they've been playing pretty well the last couple of weeks, so they've been kind of holding it down for him.
Yeah, I expect you're correct. But the big piece of business here is right tackle Lyle Collins left the game early. It did not look good at the time. After the game, something that he thought he only quote unquote dislocated his kneecap and would miss limited time. He passed the initial ACL tests, but we got the bad news the next day. It is indeed an ACL, and he is out for the rest of the season. So before we get into our next segment, which is the Are You Worried game, what have you heard about just this injury, how it affects him this year and next year, if we're being honest?
Yeah, it was kind of a weird roller coaster for the 24 hours. Yeah, it looked like a bad injury. The guy, I'm not sure. I can't remember what player on Buffalo. Nothing dirty. He just kind of rolled over into his knee and bent it. Yeah, it looked like, oh, he's absolutely gone. He's done. I was surprised he was even able to walk off the field under his own power. And then you hear after the game, yeah, he passed the initial test. Okay, cool. Maybe he might miss a couple weeks. Worst case, we'll see him by the first week of the playoffs. And then the next day, like, oh nope, we lied. Test came out, and it was ACL and MCL too. I think it was. There were 2 ligaments that he tore. So, yeah, he's absolutely gone for the year. With the recovery time, he'd be pushing it. Especially with the linemen, got to build up a little more strength than the average player. He'd be pushing it to be back in time for camp next year. So
yeah, out for the year. His replacement is going to be Hakeem Adeniji. We'll touch a little bit on that, actually probably a lot shortly. What do you think, or does this do anything for his outlook, Collins' outlook next season?
I think there's actually a strong chance that was his last snap that he played as a Cincinnati Bengal. He was signed to a 3-year deal, but only $5 million of that was guaranteed. After this year, he could be released with a $4.3 million cap savings. With his injury history, and he's had back problems that caused him to miss a large portion of the training camp, including all of early training camp. He hasn't been able to practice. Like, every Wednesday has been a Veterans Day. He, just to lighten his load. And frankly, he's been kind of mediocre. Again, he's been a good run blocker, but his pass block
is very good against the run and pretty bad against the pass.
Yeah, he's been very bad. And especially you get someone with speed around him, and he just doesn't have the agility to get out and to keep him off around that corner. So
he does hilariously fall down sometimes.
Yeah. That's almost like, I slipped. That's why he beat me. But yeah, there's especially since these are the new Bengals that actually, release players instead of holding on to bad contracts. There's a chance they'll be looking for a new starting right tackle for the 2023 season. So would not surprise me one bit.
Let's just use this to segue right into this week's unique segment, the Are You Worried game. Joe, are you worried about the offensive line without LC?
A bit, and kind of really depends on what they're doing. I think pass protection is probably going to stay around the same. Hakeem Adeniji has played a lot. This is his 3rd season. Last year he played a lot interior, replacing Carmen as a guard. And he's a decent pass blocker. He had made some mistakes this past week, but again, that's his first live game action outside of a few snaps here or there. So I think where they're going to miss LC and where the problem is going to be felt more is in the run game. Still very good run blocker. He gets out in front, and it's just a freight train when he's leading the way. They're not the same player. I mean, they're different styles of tackles. So I don't know if they're going to change up some calls a little bit to play more towards Denji's strengths, but I think they're going to be okay long term. I don't think it's going to be. Look at the line that they had all last year. They can survive with 4 absolute holes on the offensive line. Having one guy who's a little substandard than the guy that he's replacing isn't going to kill them.
Yeah, that's the point that I really wanted to hammer home. It's still better than what they had last year, and they went all the way to the Super Bowl. Am I worried? Yeah, a little bit. I mean, LC is better. That's why he was the starter. So we are not a better football team. They are not a better football team today than they were a few days ago. But, the run game has been inconsistent anyway. You do want that to be kind of dialed in heading into the playoffs, but they have kind of proven that if it's not working for them, they will use it just as often as they have to and no more, and just let Joe Burrow cook. So I don't think this is a death knell for the season by any means, but we'll see. I'm a little worried. We've been talking about this offensive line all season long, and hey, now we get to for hopefully about 4 or 5 more weeks.
Speaking of letting people cook, did you watch it was the Nickelodeon game they had on Christmas Day with the Broncos? Did you see when Patrick Starr was doing analysis?
No.
Patrick was doing it was the voice actor Bill Fagerbakke doing live commentary, and they had so they had Patrick Starr there, and it was after one of our favorite guy Russ Wilson's interceptions, and he was leveling him. Even Patrick Starr threw something like, I don't think that's what he meant to cook. If you get a chance, look it up when you're getting blasted.
All right, well,
by
I'm
an
going to throw.
animated, yeah, but by an animated idiotic starfish. You
Well,
know you've hit
let's
rock
throw in.
bottom.
Let's throw in a bonus. Are you worried segment here? Are you worried about Russell Wilson? It's not a good sign when your GM or an owner have to come out and say we think we can fix the guy you just mortgaged your future for. You think he's fixable. I'm not worried about him because I am enjoying this era more than any other Russell Wilson area. I actively root for his demise. My life is better when his is worse. So I'm not worried at all.
I think this is the NFLPA came out. They're trying to say there's collusion against these fully guaranteed contracts. And you look at two of the biggest names of the guaranteed contracts, Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson, and you're like, that's why they're not wanting to fully guarantee contract. It's bullshit that they're not. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they should be 100% guaranteed, especially in a game like football where these guys get injured at such a high rate and they can get cut, and miss out on so much of their money. I mean, you sign a contract for that. This should be like baseball. You owe them every penny that you paid. But that being said, like, that's why that there's a thing. That's why that no one wants to guarantee these contracts. That's a shitload of money to have to pay someone who either sucks or gets hurt. And getting able, again, it's dumb that they can, but the ability to do that, like, is kind of in a league with the salary cap that kind of keeps the teams from getting totally killed by, unless you've screwed up and done something like that. So again, I'm happy to see, because those two guys are just awful, awful examples of people. Not that Russ Wilson's a bad person; he's just a douchebag. But
Russell Wilson's house is like 30,000 square feet, has like 4 bedrooms and 12 and a half bathrooms.
Yeah,
he has like 3 times more bathrooms than bedrooms. I'll
I don't
never get over
understand
that.
Yeah.
I'll never get over it, and nobody likes him.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Joe, are you worried about Jamar Chase? Maybe a bit surprised that I'm asking this, but he had, in my opinion, at least by his standards, 2 kind of rough weeks in a row. 15 catches, but 26 targets in those 2 weeks. And this isn't Mitch the Truth Bisky throwing him the ball. Those targets are usually pretty close to his hands. He's had 2 fumbles, including the huge one last week, and just some uncharacteristic drops that honestly would have blown the game wide open. Are you worried about Jamar Chase?
No, not worried. Something to, again, you always kind of want to keep an eye on these things to see if it's a trend, to see if it's just a blip on the radar. Again, bad games happen. He had a bad game against Cleveland last year. Had, again, in poor forced fumble in the middle of the field on the first drive of the game when Denzel Ward had the 99-yard pick six. It was, it was a bad route by him for not coming back to the ball. He'll have these games, and then he'll come out this week and catch 10 catches for 178 yards and 3 touchdowns. So I'm not really worried. Yeah. He's averaging just a fuzz under 90 yards per game in the handful of games since he came back from injury. So it's something to keep an eye on, but I don't think this is anything bigger. This is a symptom of a bigger problem.
Yeah, I'm with you. I am not worried. 3 weeks ago, he was a monster, and I fully expect him to show out this week against Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and the Bills. So our last Are You Worried category is for, spoiler alert, my Randy Watson dud of the week. Evan McPherson. Are you worried, Joe, about Money Mac?
I would say of anybody else, or of everybody that we mentioned, yeah, more than anything else. Kickers are fickle. They'll a lot of it's a rhythm and confidence game. And once you lose that confidence, a lot of times it doesn't come back, or it struggles to come back. I don't think that this is, again, I think this was just a weird blip of the radar. The end zone, all of the 2 extra points and the field goal that he missed were in the exact same end zone. And the Patriots, Nick Folk, missed 2 extra points in that exact same end zone. So it's weird because it really wasn't windy. On one of the kicks, the flag was just laying totally flaccid, as you repeatedly said this week. So I don't know if someone just put some weird voodoo hex on that end of the field, but I don't know. Something weird was going on down there. He's been a little more up and down this year than you'd want him to be, but he's still money from over 50, from 50 plus. And again, I mean, has yet to cost them. Again, knock on, you don't want that to happen, but if you can make mistakes in a win and be able to get them ironed out so that they don't cost you a game, that's the time to, that's the time to do it if you have to.
Yeah. Well, like I said, he is my dud. And in case you need to know a little more about my dud.
Yes! Randy Watson! That boy is good. Mm-hmm. Good and terrible.
That might be the most perfect this clip's ever worked. That boy, but he's been a little bit terrible. One extra point, one field goal. He missed another extra point that was negated by a penalty. He has missed 5 of 27 field goal attempts this year. Missed kicks in back-to-back games for only the second time in his career. He's missed 4 extra points. Not counting the one that got called back, obviously. Our guy was tied for the 4th lowest graded special teams performance last week. He's the 36th highest rated kicker in the league. There are only 32 teams.
That's not good.
Inside of 50 yards, he is the worst kicker in the entire NFL this season. It's the weirdest stat. I think I heard that on the Athletic podcast. The guy's money from 50 plus. It makes no sense to me. I don't know what to think of it. We had the next Justin Tucker, and now I'm just not feeling too confident heading into the playoffs. And this is the same guy that carried the team on his foot last year. So am I worried? Yeah, I'm kind of worried. So we'll see. Prove me wrong, Evan, please.
Do it.
All right, so that's my dud. Joe, are you and Olivia Newton-John going to tell me about this week's stud?
Tell me about it, stud.
So hot. R.I.P.
Give it up, man. She's dead. She's not coming back for you.
All right, you find me a new stud clip, and we can crowdsource it. One of our 11 listeners can send us a new stud clip. We're good.
This week's stud of the week is none other than Joseph Lee Burrow. Again, for the whole game, 40 of 52, 375 yards, 3 touchdowns. Yeah, 2 interceptions. We're not going to talk about those because those were bullshit and causes of receivers not being on the same page. He should have had 450 plus yards. If you look at the drops and some, the plays that were just left out on the field, I don't think I've ever seen him throw the ball as well as he was throwing it on Sunday. 2 long passes that to Higgins down the field. When that's what's going to happen when you put a 6'4" receiver, a 5'8" cornerback. No matter how good Marcus Jones is, and he's damn good. I mean, you see his return skills. That's not the guy you want to put on T. Higgins because they're just going to throw it over the top of him all game long. 3rd and 17 from somewhere around the 20-yard line in the first quarter. Dropped an absolute dot to Chase. He caught it, went out of bounds at the 2. The first touchdown to Trenton Irwin just absolute dropped it right over the middle, right into his hands. What should have been the 3rd touchdown pass to Trenton Irwin, almost the exact same play, the exact same spot on the field. Just absolute lights out. Every single pass that you wanted to see a quarterback make, he was hitting it and just putting it right there on the money. He's just so good, and we're spoiled. I mean, Bengals have actually been lucky in their history. They've had good quarterback play for the almost the entirety, with the exception of in the 90s. After Boomer, you had a couple decent years of Blake and then a bunch of shit. But through Kenny Anderson, through Boomer, Carson Palmer, Andy Dalton got some solid play. This guy's he's so much better than on another level than any of those guys, and we're just spoiled and lucky to have this guy.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I cannot wait to watch the showdown on Monday Night Football that we're going to talk a little more about shortly. But let's move on to some awards. Hey, I'm going to go first this week. Let's mix it up.
Go for it.
This week, I'm going to give out the Ray Jackson Big Man Award to T. Higgins. And I ain't going to lie to you, I have been trying to find an excuse to get Ray Jackson involved in this production the entire time we've been doing it. So I'm going to play one clip that sort of just lets our listeners and viewers know who Ray Jackson is. And then another one because the direct quote.
Come on, get up! Come on! I'm gonna kill you, man! Yeah, you, man! You got it!
So
Vic, you want to go out with a real big man?
We get doubled
man.
up with Donald Gibbs. Love that guy.
It's amazing. I have wanted to. I regret not being. I wish I was I wish I was a real big man, so that I could just saddle up behind my fiance and be like, "Hey, honey, ever been with a real big man?" So good. He follows that up by saying, "Nah, too handsome for you, I guess." So just all time legend. A little background on my guy Ray Jackson in the film Bloodsport specifically. Long story short, there's an underground martial arts tournament going on in Hong Kong called a Kumite. It's winner take all, and the best of the best from all over the world come and test their skills. While Jean-Claude Van Damme is, as Frank Dukes, is the main character in the film, his American counterpart, Ray Jackson, played by the aforementioned Donald Gibb, who you may know as Ogre from Revenge of the Nerds, really steals the damn show. Ray, who is generally hysterical throughout the entire movie, has reached levels of martial arts superiority primarily by being bigger than his opponents. And, well, how does this relate to our dude, T. Higgins? As we mentioned, T went off for 8 catches, or maybe we didn't mention, and 128 yards and a touchdown in the win over New England. And most of those yards came matched up against the Patriots cornerback Marcus Jones. Now, this is no slight against Jones, who's a perfectly fine football player. But cromulent, if you will. But it's hard to compete when going up against a real big man like T. Higgins. You see, Jones is 5 feet and 8 inches tall. And our guy T is just chilling up there at 6'4", getting rained on first. So for those counting at home, that's nearly an 8-inch height difference. And add that to a nearly 50-pound weight discrepancy, and it's no wonder that T had such a big day. So in conclusion, T. Higgins, you're a big, tall, kick-ass monument of a dude, and being compared to the man, the myth, and legend Ray Jackson is among the highest forms of praise one can hope to receive. Congratulations.
That was a very thorough description there. See, I saw the Ray Jackson Award on the show notes, and I thought you were talking about the forgotten man from the Fab Five. Not Jimmy King or Juwan Howard, Jalen Rose or Chris Webber. That Ray Jackson, but no, you're going with Ogre.
See if we can work one in next week. All right. So, Joe, you are up next. Do you want to introduce your clip, or do you want me to play the clip first?
Oh, I think the clip introduces itself. So if you want to just press the play button, my brother.
Here we go.
We got 2 words for you! The New Age Outlaws are back!
So this is PG-13 warning, but we've been talking about flaccid a lot lately. So
I think "suck it" is about as PG-13 as we get anyway. So if that offends you, what the fuck are you doing here? No, the New Age Outlaws Award goes to your good friend and mine, Mac Jones, because he's a little douchebag. And this week, on top of all the other douchebaggery stuff he's done that I will document here, on the weird, incomplete pass, intentional grounding / really was a fumble that they let play on and let Jermaine Pratt run 50, 60 yards downfield for an almost touchdown. He thought it was a good idea to try to dive at a trailing defender's knees. He dove at Eli Apple. I don't know if you guys saw the video of this. I mean, it's just blatant. He realized he wasn't going to catch up to him, so he looked over his shoulder, saw a Bengal coming, and just slowed down, went right towards him, and dove at his knees. Now, the Weasley little douchebag tried to say, oh, he's just trying to block the player. Bengals have the ball. Who are you blocking? Like, you're blocking a guy behind your guy who's trailing. Like, it was, and I can't remember if I can't remember the wide receiver. It was the fast wide receiver the New England has. He runs a 4.2. Eli Apple wasn't catching up to that guy to block him to catch up to Jermaine Pratt. So you're just looking out for blood. This is just another of well documented. He's the Grayson Allen of the NFL. In less than 2 years, he's built up a strong reputation of being the biggest dickhead in the league. Twice he's caught sliding cleats up when he's just doing a regular quarterback slide just to avoid contact. Twice in the same game against the Bears. One guy he kind of kicked someone to the side. Another time he ended up kicking Jaquan Brisker in the nuts. Like, I mean, it clear as day. I mean, he's lining him up. Another play. they were playing the Patriots or the Panthers, and there was a strip sack fumble, and to try to keep Brian Burns from going after the ball, he grabbed him by the ankle and was twisting him. Which I don't know if someone tries to grab your ankle when you're running away and is twisting it, it hurts like hell, and you're trying to break his ankle. And then after he was face planted by Chandler Jones after the weird lateral last play last week, he tried to trip him with his feet after he was after he was stiff armed. So exactly, I mean, you look at you can see his foot right there. He's trying to trip the guy. No one even mentioned that. It's like, no, he was like, even after he was running away from him, he tried to kick him with his feet. The guy's a dickhead. He's a little female dog that I'm not going to use because we know what I'm referring to. Suck it, Mac Jones. Suck it.
Yeah, I did not see that in real time, but obviously it starts hitting the Twitter webs after the game. And I was ready to open that clip up and be like, come on. He was just – it's a fast-paced game. He was just instincts taking over, making a play. And then I watched the clip and I was like, oh, man, even I can't apologize for that. He was so far away from any meaningful contribution that it was pretty bad. So in the words of Aristotle, suck it, Mac Jones.
I thought it was Plato. Right, so, I need to catch up on my philosophy.
Listen, read your classics. All right, so that pretty much does it for week 16. Moving on to week 18, let's take a little playoff watch. Cincinnati remains atop the AFC North, one game up on Baltimore, and in third position overall in the playoff standings. The Steelers are still kind of sort of hanging around at 7-8. Cleveland falls to 6-9 because screw them. Good. And the question I have for you before we get into a little week 17 preview is, does it hurt your soul to root for the Steelers this coming week?
I'm not rooting for the Steelers. I'm rooting for – honestly, I'm confident the Bengals are going to win, so I don't care who wins that game. I hope it ends in a tie and both teams are just kind of disappeared from the earth. I think that's fine by me. Like I'm not rooting for those assholes in the yellow and black to win. So
you're rooting on somebody to go Thanos and those be two of the
yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm completely okay with that.
That's pretty reasonable. It's hard to do anything positive for the Steelers, though. I do kind of dig Mike Tomlin. I don't care what y'all say. He's kind of rad.
He's a good coach when he's not trying to trip guys running down the field on a punt return.
That was a moment of weakness that I cannot defend. I cannot defend. So next week, Monday Night Football, the Buffalo Bills, the current number 1 seed Buffalo Bills, if I'm not mistaken.
They are
coming to the friendly confines in Cincinnati at 8:30 p.m. as 1.5-point favorites to take on our beloved Bengals. I just want to throw this out there. The Bengals are 12-3 against the spread this season. So with a 1.5-point spread, to continue the trend, Cincy either has to lose by a point, tie, or win. So I don't hate that little tidbit.
Yeah, I'm not a gambling person. I don't, pay too much attention to against spreads and everything, but that's pretty impressive that, Bengals have been pretty big. They've been favored in almost every single game too. So it's seeing them that far ahead of,
yeah, it's unheard of.
No one knows anything, but
Vegas is not happy. Like that's the whole point of the spread. You're not supposed to go 12-3 against.
Yeah.
So
well, but that's also when you have, that's when you have these odds makers that are starting, to set these on narrative more than actual quality of the, quality of the teams. When it's the, when you're still giving the team an extra, giving the opponent a 1.5 or 2 points because of bungles. Honestly, there's no reason that the Bills should be a 1.5 favorite. Both, Bengals and Bills are both on huge runs, and Bengals are the home team. The home team's getting an automatic 3-point boost. So what they're saying is it's a 4.5, whatever. Again, I don't care. The game's played on the field, not in some sports book.
I've been reading that some of the gambling stuff I pay attention to, and they it seems like Vegas has kind of just thrown out the 3-point home team advantage. That over the last several years, home field advantage just hasn't been impactful, so they've kind of gotten rid of it. Okay. So I don't know. The Bills have been fairly consistent all year. They are the 1 seed. I think in our heart of hearts, we think that this team is more balanced, more well-rounded. But if they win this game, even being at home, it's a huge, huge win. So let's get into some of the big storylines. What are you most excited about in this matchup?
This is one of the biggest Monday Night Football games in years. The combined win total of 23 between the two teams is tied for the highest amount of any Monday Night Football matchup in history. So it's a big one. This time of year, this goes a lot into seeing who's going to be the number 1 overall seed. If the Bills were to win, I mean, they almost wrap it up because they'll have the tiebreaker over the Chiefs and the Bengals. If the Bengals win, they still need some help. Still need the Chiefs to lose, but this game's a huge game. The ratings in this game are going to be massive. A lot of people tuning in for the. Curious to see who the Mannings have on this week, but a lot of people watching that game on all the different streams.
Yeah, man. I don't remember the exact stat, but this is one of the few times in Monday Night Football history where teams with 6+ game winning streaks are meeting this late in the season on Monday Night Football. That's really cool. They're predicting that it might be, like you said, the most watched Monday Night Football game ever. The narrative out of Buffalo, it seems, I hopped on a couple of their fan sites, is that this is their first playoff game. That the Bills say it starts this week, and they need a big win against a good team. I'm particularly interested in the Burrow versus Josh Allen sort of legacy matchup. I think this is a legacy game for them. I'm not trying to get too hyperbolic, but if either have a significantly more dominant game than the other, it's a huge, huge storyline. It's going to be all over the national media. They're number 2 and 3 in the MVP race right now, at least according to DraftKings, who does not sponsor us, by the way. But if they want to, give me a holler. It's team@riverfrontcincy.com. What do you think a huge Joe Burrow game, something like 400+, 3 touchdowns, no picks, and a Cincy win would be enough to propel him to either catch or surpass Patrick Mahomes in the MVP race? He narrowed the gap after last week.
Yeah. Again, I'm gonna give you the odds last week, or the stats last week. You've got to finish as the number 1 overall seed in your conference. Hurts has kind of taken himself out. The Eagles, I think, are pretty much a lock to take the number 1 seed in the NFC. With him being out and being hurt for a couple weeks, I think he's taken himself out of the equation. So it'll be either Mahomes, Burrow, or Allen, which one of the 3 teams ends up as the number 1 seed. And the quarterback play of those 3 guys are what's going to, these last 2 weeks are what's going to propel those teams to the number 1 seed. So Burrow has a huge game and he has another big game against Baltimore, then he'll and they end up with the number 1 overall seed. He's going to end up as the MVP. Otherwise, Mahomes and the Chiefs have an easier schedule. So that's why I think they're going to end up as the number 1 overall seed, even without the tiebreakers against the other 2 teams. I still think Mahomes is going to win it. But, this is definitely a game to put everyone on notice that, Burrow is a legit, real candidate if he has a good game. He doesn't even have to have that huge of a game. Just another, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. Just have a Joe Burrow-ish game.
A Joe Burrow game, that's it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's a primetime spotlight game. This is when the spotlight's on, and you have a good game, much less a great game. That right there makes your case, makes a huge case for you.
Yeah, they've had some questionable performances in these primetime games, so I'm just going to chalk that up to fluke. There's no precedent, no history that can dictate how they're going to play in a game like this. It's just so big and so much fun for these guys, and man, I'm pumped. They're very evenly matched. They play extremely similar styles. Looking at their run pass breakdown, it's just a matter of a couple percentage points, tenths of points difference. And they both very much have something to play for. They're just 2 heavyweights going toe-to-toe, Monday Night Football, next to last week of the season. And there's a ton riding on it, like we talked about. Playoff positioning. It could be the difference between the wild card and division championship for Cincinnati. There's first-round buys on the line, home field advantage. And then the psychological aspect. If either team's up the ass, you think that won't have any effect, no lingering effect, on their confidence, on the other team's confidence, on the mindset of every playoff-bound team around the league who has to they're definitely going to be tuning in. And if the Bengals come out and win by 30, nobody's expecting that by any means. But if that happened, do you think whoever they end up playing first round is not going to be, approaching them a little bit differently? So I don't know. Buffalo has 6 straight wins themselves. I'll personally be keeping an eye on this Hakeem Adeniji matchup, see how he does, and if they just have to abandon the run game altogether, if he's not holding it up. I don't know, man, but I could not be more freaking pumped. I know that we are scheduled for a Patreon hangout with the Riverfront family. That is patreon.com/RiverfrontCincy if you too would like to join the community. But we have a hang scheduled for that Monday that I will not be paying attention to the Patreoners because I'm going to be watching this game with a beer in my hand. What are you most pumped about, man?
Again, I mean, you've got 2 teams on after the Niners. You've got 2 teams on the 2 and second and third biggest win streaks right now. Bills are on a 6-game heater. They haven't faced the level of competition that the Bengals have, though. They've beaten in order Cleveland, Detroit, New England, Jets, Miami in the snow, and Chicago. Miami's a decent team, but again, you're facing a Florida team in the snow. You're expected to win that game. Yeah, exactly.
Finally put it to rest. Tua is overrated. Suck it, Tua. You hang out with Russell.
Yeah, I mean, get well soon. Sit out the last 2 games, dude. Like, there's your health. Like, this is however many head injuries, 3 head injuries over the course of 3 months, dude.
And I should make it clear, I have no problem with Tua. I just hate Tua's stance.
I'm okay with that. The only thing going for him is he's left-handed, but that's it. But yeah, I mean, compare that with the teams the Bengals have had to play down in their winning streak. They've played Carolina, who might end up as they might end up winning the NFC South, which is that's what a terrible division. Steelers are still hanging in there. I mean, that's still not they're still not very good. Tennessee, and then they beat Kansas City, beat Cleveland, beat Tampa Bay and New England. I mean, it's not granted neither team is facing the gauntlet that I think was expected, but I mean, the Bengals run has been a little bit more impressive, but 2 huge win streaks, man. 2 teams come in, 1 comes out. So someone's going to come out, someone's going to have one's going to be snapped.
Biggest stage possible. I can't wait, man. I'm giddy. It's going to be another Christmas present. If I'm not still hungover from New Year's Day on January 2nd, which is entirely possible, then I'm going to be having a real good time here at this one. How do you see it going?
Just don't stop drinking. I mean, that's the best way to make sure that you don't get a hangover.
You can't get hungover if you don't stop drinking.
Bad
advice, kids.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think we have any kids watching this. If there are, why? I mean, I can't even get my own kid to watch this. It's. I mean, I think it's going to be an aerial show. Allen hasn't been as dominant throwing the ball since he's had his elbow injury. He's still a freak in the pocket. He's so big, so strong, and so fast that you don't want him to get loose and make some of these runs where he just runs over these linebackers. Their run game has been a lot better. Last 2 weeks, they ran for 150 yards 2 weeks ago against Miami, and they ran for 254 last week against the Bears. Now, granted, the Bears are flaming hot garbage, but that's still a hell of a lot of yards to run for. That being said, I'm still expecting it to be an aerial show. Bengals can't sleep on their running ability, but we have DJ Reader and those teams don't. Their pass rush has been lackluster since Von Miller went out. They were one of the better pass rushing teams while he was in there, and since he's been out, they've kind of fallen back towards the middle of the pack. Again, that helps not having that dominant guy that they can move around and throw over top of Adeniji, or Jonah Williams was everyone's whipping boy a few weeks ago. Gregory Rousseau, they've got some playmakers. Gregory Rousseau is really good. Matt Milano, I don't know how much he blitzes, but he makes a ton of plays as a linebacker. And Ed Oliver is a really good tackle, but they don't have that guy who can absolutely wreck your game plan. So that's, it's going to be a fun game. I don't have it going as high scoring as I think. I'm not sure what the over-under is. I've got it 24-20 Bengals. Defense holds the line on a last-minute drive. Joe takes a knee to end it. What do you think? What are you seeing?
That's a little more low scoring than I see. I've got it 32-31. I'm playing fully into the movie narrative here. Bengals win in a wild-ass shootout with some serious Money Mac redemption as the clock expires. Let's go. I'm ready. Pumped.
I'm taking a look at how the Bengals have done. I'm taking a look at how the Bengals have done the last few games against Mahomes. They've been games in the 20s. They've been exciting and entertaining as hell, but it hasn't been these 30, 40 point shootouts. They've been more, ebbs and flows and, riding the crest and the waves of the, crest of the tide. So
I'm not going to be upset if they win by your score, but I'll have more fun if they win by mine.
I'm okay if they win 3-2.
It's true. That'd be bored as hell, but I'd be okay with it.
A boring W is still a W.
That's exactly right. That should pretty much do it. Do you have any parting thoughts for our guests?
Happy New Year, everybody. If you're going to go out and, I know New Year's Eve is kind of amateur hour. I'm too old for that shit. But if you're going to go out and have a good time, use an Uber. Don't be dumb. Don't be a statistic. This is 2022, almost 2023. There's plenty of ways to get home without having to do something stupid. So be smart. That's
right. Nothing says New Year, new me like waking up with a nasty hangover to start your 2023. Be responsible, drink responsible, but have all of the fun, and then come hang out with us and watch the Bengals beat stupid Bills, who I don't really hate except for one night only next week. All right. Joe, thank you, man. That was a lot of fun. Thank you to anyone out there who's listening and supporting. Notice I didn't say everyone. I said anyone. Supporting the Riverfront Bengals Show. Everybody who made us #1 in the island micronation of Palau. Please remember to subscribe to the show either on YouTube or in your favorite podcast app. We are on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We are at TR Bengals Show. On all those, we're also at Riverfront Cincy and a couple other places. For Joe Farsing, I'm Nate Dotson. Take it easy, guys.